The wind howled across the plains of Arizona, a fierce voice rising from the earth, warning everyone within earshot of a storm that was about to break. In the middle of this relentless landscape stood a young woman named Clara. She was carefree, wandering through the dry land where dust filled the air, almost dancing with the wind. The sun hung low in the sky, painting everything around her in warm hues of orange and gold. But she wasn't just enjoying the view, she was out searching for her horse. Clara loved horses. Ever since she was a little girl, they meant freedom to her. But today was different. The storm clouds gathered above, swirling like a pot about to boil over. Clara felt a shiver run down her spine when she glanced at the horizon. Just a little closer, she whispered to herself, hoping to find her horse soon. As she walked, the winds began to pick up. What had been a gentle breeze transformed into a roaring gale. Dust swirled around her, stinging her face and settling deep into her lungs. She shielded her eyes, squinting against the darkness creeping towards her. Panic flared in her chest and she pushed forward, each step more difficult than the last. I need to get back, she thought, but her horse was still out there somewhere. She couldn't leave without him. With every passing second, Clara felt more lost. The ground shifted beneath her feet, becoming a treacherous terrain of loose dirt and swirling debris. Fear clutched at her heart. She called out for her horse, but the wind swallowed her voice whole. Maverick, it was helpless, like shouting into a void. Just as a wave of despair washed over her, the sky darkened further. The storm loomed large, and it seemed as if the entire world was folding in on her. The visibility dropped to nearly nothing. She could barely see her own hands in front of her. Stay calm, she reminded herself. But then she heard a muffled thumping sound growing louder. It was like thunder, but more alive. Suddenly the ground shook. Panic surged through Clara. She realized too late what was happening. A herd of wild horses, startled by the storm, thundered past her, their hooves thumping like a rapid heartbeat. She was completely surrounded, caught in the eye of their fearful stampede. Move. She screamed, looking frantically for an escape. She stumbled, feet slipping in the loose dirt. Clara felt the wind push against her back, a terrible force that sent her sprawling. Time seemed to slow, and she could feel her heart racing, pounding against her ribcage. She could hear the roar of the wild horses, their neighs echoing in her ears. Fear clawed at her throat. What could she do then? She saw him, a figure bursting through the storm, a man on a horse, charging into the chaos. His silhouette was bold against the swirling dust and darkness. Clara's heart raced, not just from fear, but also from a flicker of hope. He wasn't just riding blindly, he was guiding the terrified horses, steering them away from her. He shouted, though the wind carried most of his words away, but she understood. He was coming for her. As he got closer, she could see the determination in his eyes. Resolve burned brightly in his expression, even as chaos swirled around. Her heart was pounding out a rhythm of desperation, and she willed herself to move. She saw him ride nearer, the graceful animal beneath him cutting through the dust with an urgent grace. Just as the horses thundered past, Clara felt the rush of wind and knew she was running out of time. The man reached her side, pulling her up against him. He shouted, the warmth of his voice cutting through the chaos. Clara clutched him tightly, heart racing as they took off together, fleeing from the hooves and the storm. The man squeezed the reins of his horse with all his strength. Go, boy, and the horse surged forward, drawing them away from the path of the wild stampede. Clara pressed her face against his back, the metallic scent of sweat mixing with the tang of the dust swirling around them. As they raced through the storm, Clara felt a mix of gratitude and awe. She had been on the brink of danger, and now she was safe, his strong grip the only thing holding her steady in the chaos. She managed to ask, breathless and shaken. Just a stranger in the right place at the right time, he replied, his voice calm and reassuring despite the chaos around them. But you should always keep an eye on the sky. With each galloping stride, the storm began to release its hold, the ground stabilizing beneath them as they moved farther away from the chaotic herd. Dust settled around them like a heavy blanket, and the air began to clear. Clara could finally breathe without the weight of panic in her chest, and she pulled away slightly to look at her savior. His features were sharp, the lines of his jaw strong even beneath the dust swirling about him. He asked, his gaze steady and kind. Clara, she managed, still in awe of what had just happened. Glad I was here, he replied with a nod. Names don't matter much out here, but Clara's heart swelled. There was something about him, some innate strength that made her feel safe, cherished even in the midst of chaos. As they slowed, Clara flicked her gaze back at the horizon. The storm had lessened, its fury subsiding, leaving trails of darkness but also glimpses of sunlight peeking through. I was looking for my horse, she admitted, her voice small. Don't worry, he's likely found shelter by now, just give him some time, he reassured her. Clara felt a wave of relief. Maverick is my best friend, I can't believe I almost lost him, she said, her voice trembling. It's easy to lose what we love when storms appear, he remarked thoughtfully. His words struck a deep chord in her. It was as if he understood something far more profound than just the storm they had escaped. As they settled in a clearing, the wild horses faded into the background, their shapes dissolving into the brown landscape. Clara began to calm, breathing in the fresh air, thankful to be out of danger. The man dismounted then, helping Clara down gently. I can't thank you enough, Clara said, feeling so grateful. Sam, he replied, extending a hand. Clara shook it, feeling the warmth of connection. They began to walk side by side, scanning the landscape for any sign of her beloved Maverick. Clara asked, trying to ease some of the tension. "Every chance I get," Sam replied, his eyes lighting up at the thought. "Horses are special. They know things we can't always see." Clara nodded. She understood. They walked for a while longer, and finally Clara's heart leapt as she spotted a familiar figure in the distance. A chestnut silhouette standing tall against the backdrop of the fading storm clouds. She shouted, running towards him. Sam smiled as he watched Clara embrace her horse, burying her face in his mane. "You found him," he said, off filtering into his voice. "Yes, thank you, Sam," Clara said breathlessly, her worry dissipating. The bond she had with Maverick was irreplaceable, and now she could feel the gentle nicker of the horse assuring her that all was well. Sam approached slowly, allowing Clara this moment with her horse before stepping back to give them space. As she brushed Maverick's coat, she turned back to Sam, a mix of admiration and curiosity in her eyes. Clara began, feeling a connection forming. "Of course," Sam replied, leaning against a nearby tree, watching her curiously. "Why did you help me?" "You could have just ridden away from the storm," Clara asked, tilting her head. "Sometimes we see ourselves in others when they're in trouble," he said softly, his gaze drifting towards the horizon. "But also, I've lost people to storms before." His words hung in the air, filled with an unspoken sadness, and Clara felt her heart tugging at the weight of his experience. "I hope you never have to face that again," she said gently. "Life is full of storms," he replied with a shrug, "but it's also full of sunlight afterwards." Clara nodded, knowing deep down that their meeting was about more than just the storm. It was about connection, a reminder that kindness can shine through the darkest moments. As they made their way back together, the air began to clear, revealing a sky painted with soft hues of pink and blue. The sun was shining through, promising a new beginning after the chaos. Clara walked beside Sam, her heart lightening as they talked about the future and their shared love for horses. In that moment, she couldn't help but feel grateful for the storm that had brought them together. It had forced her to face her fears, to lean into the chaos, and emerge with something much more rewarding, a friendship born in the tumult of nature. And maybe that was how storms worked, Clara mused. They brought with them changes, but they also cleared the way for new paths. She looked at Sam, who so willingly rode into the chaos to save her. Perhaps, just perhaps, this was the beginning of something beautiful. The wind screamed through the desert, a furious force determined to devour everything in its path. Clara was knee-deep in dust when she heard it, the rumble of hooves, the unmistakable sound of a stampede approaching. Panic surged through her veins, and time froze for a heartbeat. Just moments before, she had been carelessly enjoying the beauty of the Arizona landscape, the vast horizon stretching endlessly before her. Now a dark shadow loomed, swallowing the sun and filling the air with a choking cloud of dust. In a flash, the atmosphere shifted. The dry earth beneath her feet felt alive, quaking with the rhythm of fear. Clara's heart raced, each beat a reminder of the danger that was upon her. A herd of wild horses, frightened and desperate, raced towards her, their powerful bodies thundering like a storm. She could hardly see through the haze of dust, but there was no question they were coming straight for her. Clara screamed, but her voice was swept away by the wind. Panic tightened its grip around her throat as she stumbled backward, the ground shifting beneath her. She could barely see, each horse a dark blur racing forward, hooves striking the earth with terrifying force. It all happened so fast. Clara searched wildly for a way out, but the dust pressed down on her like a thick blanket, muffling the world. A frenzied scatter of shadows barreled closer. She felt the ground tremble, the clatter of hooves echoing like a war drum. And in that critical moment, fear transformed into a gut-wrenching realization there was nowhere to go. But just as despair threatened to swallow her whole, she caught a glimpse of motion amidst the chaos. A figure emerged from the swirling dust, a man on a horse darting through the storm like a guardian angel. The sun shattered through the clouds behind him, illuminating his silhouette in a brilliant golden light. He shouted, his deep voice somehow reaching her above the roar of the storm. The sound was like a beacon in the darkness. As the wild horses drew nearer, Clara felt a twist of destiny inside her. She staggered, barely able to stand, her legs trembling with adrenaline, and then he was there, bringing his horse to a screeching halt beside her. The power of his steed felt like a lifeline, the strength radiating from him contagious. Without hesitation, he reached down, strong hands grasping her wrist. He commanded, his eyes fierce and focused. Clara didn't hesitate. With a surge of hope, she clasped his hand tightly. He pulled her close, his solid presence a comforting anchor against the storm that raged around them. In a flurry of motion, he swung Clara onto the horse behind him. As soon as she was settled, he urged the stallion forward, galloping away from the wild stampede that threatened to engulf them both. Clara clung to him, the thud of the horse's hooves pounding a rhythm that matched the frantic beating of her heart. "It's okay," he shouted as they sped across the rough terrain, the dust swirling around them like a chaotic dance of nature. Clara couldn't believe the turn her day had taken. One moment she was searching for her horse, and the next, she was riding away from certain disaster with this stranger who had risked everything to save her. The thundering hooves of the wild horses began to fade behind them, and as they burst through the veil of dust, the landscape opened up, revealing the wide desert under a sky now streaked with orange and purple. The storm was still there, but they were moving away from it. Clara looked back, her heart still racing, relieved and bewildered. Clara shouted, her voice layered with gratitude and disbelief. "I thought." The man's laughter boomed through the noise of the wind. His tone was light, but Clara could see the seriousness in his eyes. "I didn't mean to." Clara turned to him, feeling a strange connection. "The desert can change in an instant," he replied, his gaze scanning the horizon as if he were a hawk searching for prey. "Luckily, I was out riding when I saw the dust rise." "Lucky? It felt more like a miracle," Clara said, her heart easing. "Sam," he answered, glancing back at her with a grin. "And you're Clara, the girl who nearly got trampled. Let's get you and your horse somewhere safe first." With that, they rode towards a cluster of trees on the edge of the desert. The beauty of the landscape was made even more vivid against the backdrop of the fading storm. Clara could feel her heart beginning to settle, the adrenaline still coursing through her like electricity. She asked, attempting to steer the conversation. "Something like that," he said with a chuckle. "My family has been here for generations. I know the land and its storms pretty well." Curiosity piqued, Clara leaned forward, feeling safe and exhilarated. The desert can be unforgiving, but if you learn to listen, it teaches you things about survival, about resilience. Sam's voice became serious, and Clara could see the wisdom etched in his expression. There it was, the way he spoke, like he had traveled through storms of his own. She asked softly. Sam fell silent for a moment, his eyes drifting ahead. "That life can change in a heartbeat." His words resonated with Clara. She thought of how mundane her life had felt just hours ago, how all she had wanted was a quiet day in the sun. Now a rush of adrenaline and connection coursed through her, flipping everything upside down. Finally reaching the shelter of the trees, Sam brought the horse to a stop. Clara slid off, her legs still shaky from the ride, the ground solid beneath her feet feeling like a gentle reminder she was safe. "Let's see if we can find your horse," Sam suggested, looking around. Clara declared, her heart swelling with hope. Sam dismounted with ease, scanning the area as if he could sense the horse's presence. The sun began to break more fiercely through the dissipating clouds, illuminating the land with golden light. Clara's heart pounded in her chest. She could feel a sudden rush of energy, as if the very air around her vibrated with possibility. Clara called, her voice carrying across the open ground. A moment later, she heard it, the soft whinny of a horse in the distance. Her heart leapt as she took off running in the direction of the sound. Sam called, but Clara was already filled with hope. She raced, following the sound that seemed to connect them. Suddenly, there he was. Maverick stood, unharmed, grazing on a patch of grass. Clara skidded to a stop, tears stinging her eyes at the sight. She cried, rushing towards him. Maverick turned his head, his big brown eyes meeting hers. It felt like home. Clara wrapped her arms tightly around his neck, breathing in the familiar earthy scent. "I thought I lost you," she whispered, feeling relief wash over her like a warm blanket. Just then Sam approached, a soft smile now gracing his face. "Look at you too." Clara turned, her heart overflowing with gratitude. "I don't even know how to thank you, Sam. It was instinct," he said, shrugging it off casually. But Clara could see the truth beneath his modest words. He had acted selflessly, without a second thought. They spent the next few hours together, enjoying the calm that followed the storm. The sun hung high in the sky, warming the earth, a stark contrast to the chaos that had just ensued. Clara felt a strange connection growing between them, an unspoken understanding forged in the heat of danger. Sam smiled, a genuine warmth radiating from him. "You know, sometimes you meet people at pivotal moments in your life." Clara nodded, her heart brimming with possibilities. They talked about everything, the storms, the land, their dreams, and found themselves lost in conversation as the sun began its descent. "I want to learn more about the desert," Clara admitted, her voice hopeful. "Then we'll make a good team," Sam replied, grinning. Their laughter echoed through the landscape, two souls intertwined by shocking circumstances, a friendship born from the madness of the wild desert. Clara didn't know where the road would lead them, but she felt certain of one thing: she wouldn't shy away from the storms anymore. She would face them head-on, now with a partner by her side. As they stood together, the dust still swirling gently in the distance, Clara learned that life could be unpredictable, full of wild horses, dust storms, and unexpected heroes. And maybe, just maybe, it was about embracing the chaos, not fearing it, but riding it. With the sun setting, casting hues of pink and gold across the sky, Clara felt a sense of calm overcoming her. The storm had passed, but in its wake, it had gifted her something far more profound than mere safety, a new beginning. The horizon shimmered under the blazing Arizona sun, an endless stretch of dusty earth and dry breeze. Clara stood among the vastness, entranced by the beauty of the landscape. She felt like a tiny speck in a world that was meant for giants. Today, though, she wasn't feeling small, she was basking in adventure. Each time she stepped deeper into the open land, it was as if the universe whispered a promise of new beginnings, echoing the wild heart that beat within her. But then in the blink of an eye, the sky darkened. The wind howled, a feral roar, propelling grains of sand and small debris through the air like angry projectiles. The world shifted in an instant. Clara's pulse quickened. The beauty transformed into something sinister as the storm rumbled to life, threatening to swallow everything in its path. She shouted, the name of her beloved horse ripping from her throat, momentarily drowned by the cacophony. Her heart raced as she searched through the swirling dust for his familiar figure. Fear twined around her chest like a vice. Just moments ago, she had been reveling in freedom, but now the landscape felt like a trap closing in on her. She cried out again, panic seeping into her voice. She took a hesitant step forward, each movement met with a torrent of wind that threatened to knock her off balance, but it was too late. Clara froze in horror as she heard the unmistakable sound of thundering hooves approaching. A herd of wild horses was racing toward her, blinded by fear and chaos. She turned, eyes wide, as the ground trembled beneath her feet. There was nowhere to go. She yelled, but it was futile. The herd broke through the haze, their shapes moving like dark shadows, powerful and unstoppable. Clara stumbled backward, heart pounding as the ground quaked beneath her. Her mind raced, thoughts colliding like the chaos around her. And just as despair threatened to engulf her, a silhouette emerged through the swirling dust, a man on a galloping horse, charging toward the frenzy with purpose. The sunlight broke through the clouds behind him, illuminating his figure like something out of a dream. He shouted, voice cutting through the storm. Clara's heart soared. Somehow, she felt like she was being given a second chance. His presence was a ray of hope amid the darkness. She stepped back, about to turn to make her escape, when he reached her, his eyes fierce and determined. Clara's instincts kicked in. Without thinking, she grasped his outstretched hand. In one swift motion, he pulled her onto his horse, wrapping his arm around her waist, a shield against the chaos. He urged, and with a burst of power, the horse leaped forward, breaking free from the terrible stampede. As they sped away, Clara gazed at the dust cloud churning behind them, the wild horses now a fading memory. Heart racing, she leaned into him, feeling every powerful stride of the horse beneath them. She gasped, breathless. I thought I was. No time for that now, he said, glancing back. With the storm still looming, the world around them felt surreal, a whirlwind of adrenaline and disbelief. Clara took a moment to catch her breath, slowly realizing she was wrapped in the warmth of a stranger's embrace, the scent of leather and sweat lingering in the air. She asked, her tone both curious and grateful. Name's Sam, he replied, maneuvering the horse to a thicker patch of trees, seeking refuge from the worst of the storm. A chuckle emerged from her lips, a strange mix of relief and newfound connection. He brought the horse to a halt under the shelter of a large tree, the heavy branches offering a temporary respite from the swirling dust. Clara slid off, legs trembling as the adrenaline slowly drained away. She steadied herself against the rough bark, breathing hard as she tried to process everything that had happened. Sam dismounted too, his movements precise and confident. He surveyed the area, grounding himself in the landscape as if it were an old friend. You could have gotten seriously hurt. Clara shot him a glare. I didn't think a storm would pop up like that. A look of understanding softened Sam's expression. More than anything, she replied, the bond with her horse warming her heart even amid the swirling chaos. He asked gently. No, she admitted, feeling both embarrassed and exposed. I thought I could handle it. You need to learn to respect the land, he stated, a seasoned edge in his voice. The desert has its ways. Clara studied him, how easily he moved, how the wind and dust didn't seem to faze him. There was a calmness around Sam, a confidence that made her feel secure. You seem to know a lot about this place, she said, eager to know more. Spent my whole life here, he replied, his gaze lingering on the horizon where the storm clouds were beginning to clear. The desert teaches you things you can't learn anywhere else. His words resonated with Clara. I want to learn, she said, determination seeping into her voice. Good attitude, he said with an approving nod. But be prepared, storms can catch you off guard, they hide in plain sight. As they waited for the skies to clear, Clara felt a strange connection forming between them, as if the dust storm had entwined their fates. They started sharing stories. Sam spoke of his childhood riding through the desert, of the times he had faced storms both wild and personal. Each tale painted vivid pictures in Clara's mind, igniting her passion for understanding the land. Clara asked, the question slipping out before she could hold it back. Sam paused, his expression thoughtful. Fear is a part of life, you can't escape it. It's how you react to fear that defines you. Suddenly, Clara understood. It's like today, my fear nearly froze me. But you didn't let it stop you, he pointed out. You called for help. Those words struck Clara like lightning. It was a reminder that vulnerability could be a source of power. I guess I always thought I had to be strong all by myself, she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. In this world, we're stronger together, Sam replied, his gaze steady. Sometimes you can't go it alone. The sky began to brighten as the storm retreated, revealing a landscape drenched in light. Clara felt a shift inside her, as if the storm had truly cleared, not just from the sky, but within herself as well. She looked out at the horizon, feeling a sense of possibility unfurling within her. Sam suggested, breaking into a grin. Clara's eyes sparkled with hope as they mounted the horse again. This time it felt like they were partners in the adventure. Yes. They rode off together, the dust around them settling as they ventured further into the desert. Clara directed Sam toward the direction where she last saw Maverick, their bond growing with every ride. As they searched, Clara couldn't help but notice the beauty of the desert more deeply. The vibrant hues, the wildflowers daring to bloom even in the harshest conditions. Every detail felt magnified. Riding next to Sam felt fluid and free. Sam asked suddenly, his voice steady. "Never thought of it that way," Clara replied, reflecting on his words. "I guess life is the same." "Exactly," he answered, his gaze unwavering. As they continued their search, Clara felt a growing excitement, and then a flicker of movement caught her eye. She cried, pointing toward a nearby cluster of trees. There her horse stood, still and majestic, as if he had been waiting just for her. The world melted away around them as she dismounted, her heart racing. She called again, racing toward him. The immense relief washed over her as she embraced her horse, burying her face in his warm neck. She exclaimed, feeling tears of joy fill her eyes. Sam watched from a distance, a satisfied smile playing on his lips. Clara turned to him, her heart swelling. "Thank you for bringing me to him," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I didn't do much," he replied, shrugging it off again. Together they stood, a small triangle of strength and connection, Clara, Sam, and Maverick. They each represented resilience in their own way, having faced the storms both external and internal. "Let's get you both home," Sam said, his tone shifting, and Clara could feel the bond they had forged solidifying in that moment. As they rode away from the desert, the sun began to set, casting a warm glow across the land. Clara felt the adventure had only just begun. "I want to learn more from you, Sam," she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "You're welcome to ride with me anytime," he replied, the sincerity in his voice warming her heart. "Just remember, storms will come and go." Riding together, Clara held on tightly to the reins while Sam skillfully guided the horse. It was a lesson in trust, both in the land and in each other. With every stride, Clara felt not just the wind in her hair, but the thrill of newfound strength surging through her. The storms may always come and go, but they had given her something far greater, a companion, a bond born from chaos, and the courage to face whatever life would throw her way next. She was a wild spirit, unafraid to chase the horizon, and she knew with Sam at her side she was ready for anything. The wind howled like a beast unleashed, sending clouds of dust spiraling into the air. Clara squinted against the onslaught, her heart racing as she clutched her jacket tighter around herself. Just moments ago, the day had been warm and inviting, the sun casting golden rays across the vast Arizona desert. But now, a dust storm had rolled in unexpectedly, and with it came chaos. She yelled, her voice barely piercing through the uproar. Her beloved horse had thundered away just as the storm broke, and now Clara was alone, surrounded by swirling clouds and the ominous sound of hooves in the distance. Panic clawed at her throat. She had to find him before it was too late. The ground trembled as the stampede drew nearer. Clara turned, eyes wide, trying to see through the blinding dust. Shadows loomed, dark figures moving with furious intensity. Her heart leaped into her throat, her stomach knotted with dread. She screamed into the wind, but her words faded into the roar of chaos. She staggered backward, feeling the ground shake, her instincts screaming at her to escape. But there was nowhere to go. The herd was coming and they wouldn't stop. Then, just as dread flooded her thoughts, she caught a glimpse of hope. A rider burst forth from the storm, a man on a powerful horse, charging toward her, harnessing the wind like a warrior entering battle. His blue eyes glinted with determination, cutting through the wild landscape like a beacon. He shouted, his voice strong and clear. In that split second, Clara felt a jolt of hope. He was coming for her. The sound of galloping hooves grew louder as he reached her. She barely had time to think before he extended his arm, a lifeline amid the chaos. Without hesitation, she grasped his hand, feeling the heat radiating from his skin. He pulled her onto his horse behind him, wrapping his strong arms around her waist. He yelled as they bolted away from the impending doom. Clara pressed herself against him, the sheer power of the horse surging forward, igniting an electric thrill. The thundering herd was now close, but they were moving away, the dust swirling behind them like a dark storm cloud. Clara's heart raced. She gasped, breathless. "I thought I was going to, not today, you're not," he interrupted, glancing back over his shoulder. As they sped away, Clara could still hear the earth-shaking heartbeat of the wild horses behind them, but the space between danger and safety widened. The landscape began to shift back into focus. The chaos melted away as clarity returned. The man in front of her was a stranger, but his presence felt like a protective shield against the storm. Clara asked, trying to catch her breath. "Sam," he replied, steering the horse with effortless skill. "And you're Clara, the girl who nearly got trampled." For a moment, Clara couldn't find her voice. She had never met someone so bold, so daring, and yet here he was, her savior among the dust and chaos. "I didn't mean to wander into danger." "Well, your horse has got some serious speed," Sam said with a smirk, "but we can't afford to worry about him now." With adrenaline coursing through her, Clara looked around, trying to square herself in this wild new reality. They rode deeper into the desert, the storm gradually subsiding behind them, surrendering to the bright rays of the sun bursting through the clouds. Sam asked, his voice steady. "Yeah, it is," she admitted, feeling a heavy gratitude forming toward him. "You saved my life back there. Just another day in the desert," he replied casually, but Clara could see a hint of pride in his eyes. It was as if he knew he had made a difference. The horse slowed and they approached a cluster of trees at the edge of a ridge. Sam dismounted, helping Clara off and leading the horse toward the shaded area. "Let's take a breather," he suggested, his brow slightly furrowed as he scanned the horizon, ever watchful, ever aware. Clara took a deep breath, the fresh air filling her lungs as the storm's remnants faded away. Crouched down beside the horse, gently stroking his flank, the panic from moments ago slowly retreating. Sam watched her, a thoughtful look crossing his face. "You did good out there. You didn't freeze in your moment of fear. You called for help." Clara felt her chest swell with emotion, the weight of the situation finally settling in. "I guess I only realized how scary it was when you showed up," she confessed, her voice trembling slightly. He stepped closer, his gaze unyielding. "Fear is natural. What's important is how we respond to it." Those words struck a chord in her heart. Clara realized how easy it was to let fear suffocate her thoughts, to let it convince her to back down when she should be charging forward. Perhaps in the storm of life, it was all about choosing to act despite the panic swirling inside. As they chatted under the shade of the trees, Clara found herself drawn to Sam, captivated by his fearless demeanor and undeniable strength. There was a kind of magic in the air, like the kind that only surfaces during pivotal moments of life. She felt seen, understood in a way that went deeper than words. She asked, curiosity lacing her tone. Sam leaned against a tree, folding his arms, and Clara caught the fleeting shadow of something. Was it pain, regret? "I grew up here," he said softly. "Spent my childhood riding these sands." Clara noticed the way his voice carried a hint of melancholy, a story buried beneath the surface. Asked gently, his eyes darkened for a moment, then he nodded. "Lost a friend once during a storm. He was brave every bit as much as you, but he didn't see it coming." Clara's heart tightened. "I'm sorry," she whispered, feeling the weight of his loss. "But you saved me, Sam. You didn't let fear paralyze you." A flicker of gratitude crossed his face, and Clara could see the layers of experience etched into his skin, the grit shaped by life's battles. "It's not just about me," he said thoughtfully. In that simple moment, they shared an unspoken understanding, both survivors navigating the unpredictable tapestry of life. The storm had brought them together, but it had also opened a veil of deeper revelations. "I want to learn," Clara said, her resolve strengthening. "Help me." Sam raised an eyebrow, surprised by her earnestness. "You're ready for that? It's not just romanticizing the desert." "I know," she replied firmly. Sam searched her eyes, and for a moment it felt as if they were just two souls swirling amid the chaos of life, tethered together by a common goal. "All right, let's start with some basics," he said with a grin, shifting back into the role of mentor. Clara felt a thrill race through her veins. As Sam began to teach her, she realized this was not merely about riding horses or navigating storms in the desert. It was about facing a deeper truth, learning to stand tall against fear and chaos, both inside and out. Hours slipped by like sand through fingers, and the sun began its descent. They practiced riding together, the bond between them growing stronger. Sam guided Clara with patience. When she faltered, he encouraged her to try again. Each time she strapped on the reins, she felt braver. With every gallop, Clara felt the rhythm of the desert pulsating through her. She could see it now, the beauty, the wilderness, and the undeniable connections between the elements. There was a lifelong lesson embedded in every grain of sand. The ever-changing terrain mirrored the unpredictable nature of her own life. As dusk settled over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and violet, Clara turned to Sam, breathless from the exhilaration of the ride. "Thank you for helping me face my fears. You've opened my eyes to so much, I feel." "Love to hear that," Sam replied, warmth shining in his eyes. "But remember, this is just the beginning." "I will," Clara promised, the weight of his words settling heavily in her mind. As the stars began to twinkle overhead, Clara realized that her life had irrevocably changed. The girl who had wandered out to enjoy a simple day in the desert had encountered a storm both literal and metaphorical and had emerged transformed. With Sam beside her, she was ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. The dust storm had not just threatened to take everything away, it had unveiled unexpected depths of courage and connection. And as the night unfolded around them, Clara felt a sense of purpose ignite within her. Together they looked out over the landscape, two riders poised to meet the future with open hearts and determined spirits. The winds might still blow, but they bore the strength to ride through. Clara had learned that she didn't have to face the storms alone. In Sam, she had found more than courage. She had found a partner, a friend, and together they were ready to traverse whatever wild terrain life had in store. The sun hung high in the Arizona sky, casting golden rays over the rolling expanse of dust and brush. Clara stood in the middle of this vast landscape, a sense of freedom coursing through her veins. The wind blew gently through her hair as she soaked in the beauty of the wide-open spaces. This was her sanctuary, a place where her spirit felt unchained. But on this day, freedom soon morphed into peril. Without warning, the calm was shattered. Dark clouds began to gather, swirling ominously in the distance. Clara felt a jolt of unease prickle at her skin, the change in the atmosphere palpable. The wind picked up speed, howling angrily, and Clara squinted against the dust that whipped up, stinging her cheeks. She yelled, but her voice was lost in the roar of the oncoming storm. Panic surged within her as she turned around, searching for her beloved horse. Just moments ago, he had been grazing peacefully, but now he had bolted, racing away into the chaos. Clara strained her eyes, trying to see through the thickening haze, her heart beating faster with every passing second. The unmistakable sound of thundering hooves echoed in the distance, a herd of wild horses, spooked by the dust storm, charging her way. She shouted, but it was futile. The ground quaked as the herd galloped closer, a tidal wave of chaos and power. Clara's pulse quickened, dread settling heavy in her gut. There was nowhere to escape as the very earth beneath her bravely trembled. And just when Clara thought despair would swallow her whole, a figure emerged through the swirling dust, a rider on a strong chestnut horse, charging toward her like a knight arriving just in time to save the day. His silhouette was a beacon of hope, cutting through the storm with a fierce urgency. He bellowed, his voice sliced through the chaos like a knife. Clara's heart skipped a beat. With no time to think, she turned toward him, her instincts propelling her forward. He reached out, extending a strong hand that pulled her up behind him in one fluid motion. The powerful horse surged forward, leaving the frenzied stampede behind. He called, the wind enveloping them as they sprinted away from the tumult of hooves and dust. Clara pressed against his back, feeling the warmth of his body as they galloped into relative safety. She managed to gasp, breathless from the thrill and terror. "Sam," he replied, steering the horse with steady confidence. "And you're Clara, right? Yes, I've seen you around. You're always out here, free as a bird," he said over his shoulder, a hint of admiration reflected in his voice. They continued to put distance between themselves and the chaos, the herd fading into the distance, replaced by the stillness of the trees that lined the ridge ahead. Sam brought the horse to a gentle stop under the shade, its sides heaving from the exertion. Asked concern evident in his piercing blue eyes. Clara nodded, still in disbelief that she had just escaped certain disaster. "I can't believe you found me." "Not on my watch," he replied, a confident smile breaking through the tension. With the adrenaline starting to fade, Clara felt reality settling back in. She was here, alive, and still clinging to the reality that someone had saved her. "Thank you," she breathed, her voice soft. "Just doing what anyone would do," Sam said, shrugging it off. But Clara caught the flicker of pride in his eyes. There was something different about him, a calm strength that radiated in moments of chaos. As they sat beneath the tree, Clara's curiosity about this stranger grew. "How did you know I needed help?" "Something like that," he answered, looking out at the horizon. "I've spent most of my life riding these plains. You learn to read the signs, to understand when trouble's brewing." Clara asked, intrigued. "Yeah. My family has been ranching out here for generations. You learn quickly how to stay alive and keep your loved ones safe," he said, his voice steady. But Clara noticed the hint of something deeper in his gaze, a seriousness that told stories unsaid. He inquired, turning the conversation back on her. "I love it out here," Clara replied earnestly. "It makes me feel alive. There's a sense of freedom that I just can't find anywhere else." Her voice trailed off as she grappled with her feelings about that day. "But you nearly lost it," Sam finished for her, allowing the moment to settle between them. "You can't take the wild for granted, Clara." "I understand that now," she confessed, her heart still racing from the narrow escape. "That's the ticket," he said, nodding in approval. For hours, they shared stories, setting the stage for an unexpected connection built on vulnerability and honesty. Clara found herself opening up, sharing her dreams and fears with someone who truly listened. Sam, in turn, painted vivid pictures of his childhood, adventures spent galloping across vast open plains, tales punctuated by laughter and heartache. Clara felt a warmth rising within her, realizing how profoundly the day had shifted her perspective. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a warm glow over the desert, she felt her heart beat with anticipation for what lay ahead. "Maybe you could teach me how to ride more confidently," Clara suggested, her eyes sparkling with newfound determination. Sam regarded her thoughtfully, a glimmer of approval in his expression. "I am," Clara replied, resolve threading through her voice. With that promise lingering in the air between them, Clara and Sam began to ride again, this time with purpose. Their connection deepened with every gallop, every story exchanged, blending into the rhythm of the desert that surrounded them. They practiced maneuvering through the open land, Sam teaching Clara the nuances of riding, the subtle shifts in weight, the importance of understanding her horse's movement. She was determined to overcome her fears, fiercely pushing past the insecurities that had threatened to overwhelm her. As dusk settled in, the sky transformed into a masterpiece of color, deep purples and fiery oranges painting the heavens. Clara couldn't help but feel inspired by the beauty unfolding before her. It reminded her of the battles she'd faced within herself and how overcoming fear opened a door to new possibilities. "Life is like this sky," Sam said, breaking her reverie. I never thought of it that way, Clara said, reflecting on his words. Exactly, he replied, his voice warm. And remember, the storms don't have to define you. With each moment spent in his company, Clara felt the barriers she had built around her heart begin to fall away. This stranger had stepped into her life like a sudden storm, forcing her to confront her fears while also offering solace. As they rode side by side, she could feel a deeper connection blossoming. It was more than just friendship, it was a partnership forged in the fires of experience. Clara knew that Sam had faced struggles of his own, and that made her feel even closer to him. As the final light of day faded into twilight, they found themselves in a small clearing surrounded by sagebrush and soft earth. Sam turned to her, his expression earnest. You've come a long way today, you faced your fears head-on, and that's not easy. Clara smiled, inspired by his words. I feel that way too. I've learned so much already and I want to keep going. Then let's make a pact, Sam said, holding out his hand. Clara reached for his hand, feeling the warmth radiate between them. I promise. With that, they both understood they were no longer merely travelers in the desert. They were allies bound by an unspoken trust. The evening air shimmered with possibility, and Clara knew deep within her that this moment would resonate far beyond the fading light of the day. As they set camp under the endless sky, stars began to dot the night, each one a reminder of everything Clara had learned that day. She was not just a girl caught in a dust storm, she was a warrior, ready to carve her own path. With Sam by her side, she knew they could weather any storm that came their way. The darkness enveloped them gently, but with it came a newfound light flickering in both their hearts. Together, they would navigate the wild landscapes of life, forever changed by the chaos they had faced. Clara felt lighter, freer, ready to embrace every challenge, every adventure ahead. It was the beginning of a journey, a testament to resilience and courage, illuminated by the promise that even in the wildest of storms, companionship could light the way. The wind howled through the arid landscape, a furious force swirling clouds of dust and grit in every direction. Clara squinted against the onslaught, her heart racing as panic gripped her throat. Just moments ago, she was reveling in the beauty of the Arizona desert. Now she was standing alone, surrounded by chaos. Dark clouds loomed ominously on the horizon, rolling in faster than she could have imagined. She screamed, calling for her beloved horse, but the wind swallowed her voice whole. The tension in the air tightened around her, and her gut churned as she spotted movement in the distance. A wave of panic washed over Clara as the unmistakable sound of thunderous hooves echoed through the dusty terrain. A herd of wild horses, frightened by the approaching storm, surged toward her, powers of nature unleashed. Dread pierced through her as she realized the danger she was in. She yelled, but it was too late. The ground beneath her trembled violently as the wild horses barreled blindly forward, their powerful bodies streaking toward her like a freight train. In that split second, with every instinct screaming at her to flee, Clara found herself frozen in place, paralyzed by the sheer enormity of what was coming. But just as despair threatened to swallow her whole, a flash of movement broke through the chaos. A rider appeared, racing through the dust, charging towards her with fierce determination. He shouted, his voice piercing through the storm like a beacon of hope. Clara's heart raced. She felt a rush of adrenaline, instinct kicking in as she turned toward him. He was a silhouette against the dust, strong and fearless. Without thinking, she reached out and he grabbed her hand, pulling her onto his horse just as the stampede came crashing closer. He yelled, the wind roaring around them. Clara nestled against his back, the powerful horse surging forward, leaving the imminent danger behind. As they galloped away, the chaos began to fade, both the wild horses and the swirling dust retreating into the distance. Clara gasped, still breathless from the adrenaline and newfound fear. I thought I was going to, not today, he replied, glancing back with a confident smile that made her heart feel lighter. They rode deeper into the serene expanse of the desert, the roar of the storm replaced by the rhythmic sound of galloping hooves against the earth. Clara took a moment to catch her breath, still trying to wrap her mind around what had just happened. She managed to ask. Sam, he said, his voice steady and reassuring. And you're Clara, right? She blinked in surprise. I've seen you around here, always exploring the wild, he said, steering the horse with ease. Clara nodded, recalling how she loved venturing out alone, feeling free in the limitless desert, but today had shattered that illusion. I didn't expect a storm like that to come out of nowhere, she said, both grateful and guilty for careless wanderings. That's how storms work, Sam replied. They can sneak up on you if you're not paying attention. As they rode on, Clara felt a bond forming between them, strangers thrust together by the chaos. Thank you for saving me. Just doing what anyone would do, he said, but there was a hint of pride in his voice, glowing with warmth. They ventured toward a grove of trees, finding reprieve from the storm clouds that had threatened their safety. Sam brought the horse to a stop, and Clara slid down, her legs shaky but relieved. She felt the remnants of fear still coursing through her, but there was also a flicker of exhilaration. Sam asked, concern lacing his words as he assessed her weariness. Yeah, I think so, Clara replied, her voice catching in her throat. Sam nodded, letting a moment pass as they breathed in the relatively still air. Let's take a minute. Clara looked at him, the sincerity in his eyes striking a chord deep inside her. I didn't know what to do, she admitted, feeling the vulnerability clawing at her. I was terrified. Fear is normal, Sam said, gazing off toward the horizon, but it can be a powerful tool if you know how to listen to it. Clara considered his words carefully. There was something profoundly grounded about Sam, a calm confidence that made her feel safe. She asked, curiosity piquing her interest. I've lived out here my whole life, he said, folding his arms. These lands have taught me a lot about reading signs, the storms, the animals, and even people. A warmth bloomed in her chest as Clara listened. He wasn't just a random stranger. He was a kindred spirit who understood the wildness that called to both of them. Clara asked hesitantly. She could sense there was more to his story, that behind his strength lay scars from battles fought. He hesitated, searching her eyes. I lost a friend once. He was out in a storm just like today, thought he knew everything. His voice softened, but Clara could see the pain behind his gaze. I'm sorry, she said, her heart aching for him. He shrugged. It taught me a hard lesson. The wilderness offers many rewards, but it demands respect. Clara nodded, feeling a connection form in the depths of her heart. She understood fear all too well, but now, standing next to Sam, she felt a flicker of hope igniting within her. I want to learn, she said, her voice steady. Sam's eyes lit up with approval. You're willing to learn, that's a good attitude. They shared stories for hours, revealing dreams and fears, their laughter mingling with the sounds of the rustling trees. Clara found herself captivated by Sam's tales of riding in the wild, galloping through open plains, feeling the wind whip through his hair. There was an ease about him that made her feel alive, invigorated. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, the colors began to change, casting a brilliant array of purples and oranges across the horizon. Clara felt exhilarated. The storm and its chaos had transformed into something beautiful. Let's ride again, Sam said suddenly, his enthusiasm infectious. Clara's heart fluttered with excitement. Really? Of course, he replied, grinning, but it'll take practice. You need to learn how to connect with your horse, not just control it. With that promise hanging in the air, they mounted their horses again. Clara felt a surge of determination as they rode forward, Sam leading her through the winding paths that cut through the desert. He encouraged her to trust her instincts, guiding her to let go of the fear that had gripped her so tightly. Clara felt exhilaration dancing within her each time they galloped further, each stride building her confidence. Let the horse feel your energy, Sam instructed. If you're afraid, the horse will sense it. With every passing moment, Clara shed layers of fear and uncertainty. She started to listen, not just to Sam, but to herself. The winds that had once threatened to tear her apart now whispered of freedom. As they rode side by side, laughter spilled between them like sunlight, illuminating the dark corners of their separate pasts. Clara could feel a bond forming, one that was deep and unspoken, grounded in shared experiences. Clara asked, contemplating the adventures that lay ahead. Sam glanced at her, curiosity glimmering in his eyes. Absolutely, it's about finding balance. Those words resonated deeply. Clara understood the wild now, how it could be both exhilarating and terrifying, how fear and courage intertwined like two halves of a whole. As they rode toward a small creek, the sound of water flowing quietly filled the air, washing away remnants of the storm. Clara felt her spirit lift, the world blossoming in front of her, wide open and full of possibility. Let's pause here, Sam suggested, signaling for the horses to stop. They dismounted, letting their horses drink from the cool water. Clara crouched down, letting her fingers brush through the shallow creek, feeling more alive than she had in a long time. I never knew how wonderful it could feel to connect with the land like this, Clara said, her voice soft. Sam leaned against a tree, watching her with keen interest. The desert has a pulse. It'll teach you if you're willing to learn, but be careful. Every adventure comes with its own set of risks. Clara looked up, meeting his gaze, feeling as though he were speaking to something deeper within her. I want to be engaged. You're on your way, Sam replied, a proud smile creeping onto his face. As their afternoon turned to evening, the sun began its slow descent behind the jagged mountains. The air felt cooler, luminous, and full of new potential. Clara felt a shift inside her. She wasn't just surviving the storms anymore, she was learning to embrace them. Together, they stood under the vast expanse of the sky, the stars beginning to flicker one by one. Clara felt exhilaration fuse with peace. The world around her was beautiful. A world that had initially felt chaotic and frightening was revealing its wonders. Thank you for today, she said sincerely, her heart swelling with gratitude for everything. Glad to hear it, Sam said, his eyes sparkling with a hint of mischief. But remember, challenges will always arise. Clara nodded, her determination unwavering. As darkness fell, they both sat beside the creek, sharing stories and laughter under the blanket of stars. It felt like the beginning of something profound, a connection that transcended their individual journeys. In the warmth of the night, Clara understood that her brush with despair had gifted her the courage to chase the unknown, the wild heart to dance with uncertainty, and the insight to respect the wilderness that had both frightened and liberated her. Sam's presence was a calming force against the backdrop of adventure, and she realized that together, they could ride the storm's life through their way. The chaos of the day had taught her resilience and renewed her spirit, painting a future filled with hope. As they gazed up at the stars, both stretched across the sky like the endless possibilities ahead, Clara breathed deeply, embracing the magic of that night. She was no longer the girl caught in a storm. She was a partner in the dance of life, fully alive, ready to face whatever came next. Together they would conquer the wild, hand in hand, hearts intertwined, ready for anything the horizon might bring. The wind howled across the vast Arizona desert, a ferocious beast ripping through the dry landscape. Clara stood there, oblivious to the gathering storm clouds, laughing as she rode Maverick, her trusted horse. They raced across the sun-baked earth, the exhilaration filling her lungs with every breath. She felt alive, free, untethered. But as the shadows began to darken the horizon, that sense of freedom quickly turned into something else, something terrifying. The world shifted in an instant. A rumble echoed in the distance, a sound so primal that it sent shivers down Clara's spine. She squinted into the growing darkness, her heart racing. Dust began to swirl around her, wrapping around her like a heavy blanket. She called out, her voice nearly swallowed by the rising wind, but Maverick was already restless, sensing the danger lurking just beyond the horizon. Clara swiftly maneuvered him, but the chaos was relentless. The ground shook beneath her as a dark wave of dust surged toward them, obscuring everything in sight. And then from the hellish blur she heard it, the thunderous sound of hooves, a stampede of wild horses barreling toward her. Panic gripped her chest like a vice. Run. She shouted, desperation lacing her voice, but it was too late. The air was thick and visibility was down to almost nothing. Shadows flickered in her peripheral vision, and she felt the ground tremble beneath the approaching herd. Just as she turned to flee, a silhouette emerged from the tempest, a figure riding courageously through the dust. He was a man on a powerful horse, charging towards her like a knight in shining armor. He yelled, his voice rising above the roar of the storm. Clara felt a flicker of hope ignite within her, a spark that cut through her fear. He reached her just as the wild horses came barreling forward. With a single motion, he grabbed her, pulling her onto his horse behind him. He shouted and they erupted into motion, galloping away from the chaos. Clara clung to him, the speed dizzying as they raced away from the storm and the stampede. She could hear the thunder of hooves fade into the background, replaced by the steady beat of their horses' gallop. In that mad rush, Clara felt both terrified and exhilarated. Thank you. She breathed, still recovering from the adrenaline surging through her. Not a problem, he replied, glancing back with a confident grin. Clara asked, curiosity mixing with gratitude. Name's Sam, he said, eyes focused ahead. She blinked, feeling a mix of surprise and intrigue. I've seen you ride out here, Sam said, his tone casual. You're a regular explorer, right, but you've got to learn to be careful. Clara nodded, still grappling with the gravity of the moment. Even the wildest horses need to respect the storm, he replied, his voice steady. They rode deeper into the desert, the storm raging behind them but slowly dissipating. It was hard to believe how quickly everything had changed. Just an hour ago she had felt so invincible, and now she felt fragile like glass ready to shatter. Thank you for saving me, Clara said again, her voice sincere. Just doing what anyone would do, he replied, but she could see a hint of pride in his eyes. The two of them arrived at a cluster of rocks that provided some cover from the wind. Sam dismounted and helped Clara slide down. They paused for a moment, both catching their breath. Clara leaned against a rock, the coolness grounding her as she finally began to calm down. He asked, concern flickering in his gaze. I think so, Clara replied, still trying to shake off the remnants of adrenaline. That was just another day in the desert, Sam said with a half-smile. Clara felt warmth fill her chest, not just from the sun, but from the realization that she hadn't been completely helpless. I didn't really know what to do, though. Fear's a natural response. It keeps us alert, Sam said, his tone serious. But sometimes you have to face it head-on. I guess, Clara admitted, reflecting on the chaos, but I never imagined I'd find myself in a situation like that. Life doesn't always prepare us, he replied thoughtfully. His words resonated within her, they stirred something deep in understanding. She fought against the tides of fear that had kept her from taking risks in the past, the apprehension that turned her adventurous spirit into caution. I want to learn, she said resolutely, her voice gaining strength. Sam regarded her, a flicker of approval glimmering in his eyes. Clara's heart raced with excitement. She had never felt so alive and so eager to learn. Sure, but it's going to take practice. Trust me, you can't just jump in feet first. With that promise, they mounted their horses again and began to ride, this time with a purpose. The mood shifted as they began to explore the landscape, a dance between the beauty of the desert and the peril it could bring. Sam guided her through various terrains, teaching her how to read the signs of the land, the subtle shifts in the wind, the way the animals moved. Clara found herself soaking in every word as if they were precious treasures. Stay connected to your horse, Sam instructed, his voice steady and calming. You need to be in sync, feel the energy between you two. Clara focused intently, trying to let go of the fear from earlier while feeling the rhythm of Maverick beneath her. With every twist and turn, she was starting to gain confidence, a newfound sense of freedom washing over her like a wave. Clara asked after a while, glancing at Sam. I grew up doing this, he replied thoughtfully. At times it's a blessing, other times it can get lonely, but I've learned to appreciate both sides." His words struck a chord. Clara realized she had often viewed solitude as a weakness, but here, Sam showed her how it could be empowering. She asked, the weight of that question hanging in the air. "Of course," he replied, a frankness in his eyes. "Fear can be a guide, but I've learned to shift my focus." Clara thought about that, feeling a sense of camaraderie growing. They rode on, finding a rhythm together that felt effortless. The landscape shifted from rocky terrains to open fields, and for the first time, Clara understood the wild heart of the desert, not just as a force to be reckoned with, but as a companion. As they rode, the sun began its descent, casting long shadows and painting the sky in vibrant hues. Clara felt alive, exhilarated by the day and forever grateful for Sam's presence. The storm had brought them together, but it was the shared experience that connected their souls. Eventually, they reached a small creek flanked by willow trees. The air felt cooler here, a refreshing change after the heat of the day. Sam dismounted and offered his hand to Clara, helping her down gently. "Let's take a break," he suggested, leading the horses to drink from the clear water. Clara knelt at the edge of the creek, feeling the cool glimmer of the water against her fingers. The world around her felt quieter, the chaos of earlier now just a memory. "I never thought I could feel this connected to the land," Clara confessed, gazing into the water. "It's all about presence," Sam replied. Clara nodded, understanding how the day had peeled back layers of her own fears, revealing a new depth of strength. "Thank you for reminding me what it feels like to be brave," she said, her voice filled with sincerity. "I'm glad to hear that. Just remember, bravery is not the absence of fear. It's acting in spite of it," he said, leaning against a tree, watching her with a softness in his eyes. As twilight settled in, they sat on the banks of the creek, exchanging stories and dreams. Clara laughed as Sam recounted tales of his own misadventures, moments where he took risks that he later regretted or cherished. "Life is about the wild, unpredictable moments," he admitted, his smile deepening. "Those are the ones that shape us." Clara felt a deep connection stir within her. "And the rides teach you courage," she added, her heart swelling. The stars began to twinkle above them, a blanket of diamonds against the vast sky. Clara felt a profound sense of peace, a stillness that had eluded her for too long. "You know, it's funny," she said suddenly, a playful glimmer in her eyes. "I came out here today and nearly got trampled in a dust storm, and now—" Sam chuckled, a rich sound that filled the space between them. With that sentiment lingering in the air, Clara realized that she had gained much more than just riding skills. She had discovered the beauty in embracing life's unpredictability. Together, they could dance through the storms and the shadows, emerging stronger side by side. As the sun dipped below the horizon, illuminating the world in twilight, Clara felt completely changed, rebirthed by the experience. She had faced danger, found courage, and forged a new connection with someone who understood her spirit. In that serene moment, surrounded by the whispers of nature, Clara knew they were both ready to face whatever lay ahead. The wild heart of the desert no longer seemed daunting. It felt like home, a place where she could learn, grow, and thrive. And as the stars twinkled like a million little guides, Clara made a quiet promise to herself to embrace the storms of life with a fearless heart, knowing that every challenge would teach her something profound. With Sam by her side, she felt ready to take on the world, one storm at a time, fully alive and unafraid. The air was thick with anticipation as Clara rode out into the open desert. The golden sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the landscape, creating an almost mystical ambience. She loved the freedom that came with riding Maverick, her chestnut horse. It was just the two of them against the vast expanse of blue sky and shimmering earth, but today something felt different. As they galloped across the familiar terrain, Clara noticed dark clouds gathering at the horizon. Ignoring them at first, she urged Maverick onward, relishing the wind tugging at her hair. The thrill of the ride coursed through her veins, but then the wind changed, whipping around her violently, carrying with it a distant rumble that vibrated through the ground like a warning bell. Suddenly, without warning, the dust storm erupted. It exploded over the horizon, darkening the sky and swirling toward her like a living thing. Clara's heart dropped. The world around her turned into a whirlwind of chaos. "Maverick," she shouted, her voice barely audible over the roar of the wind, but her horse had sensed the danger. Maverick reared, hooves dancing in agitation, and before Clara could calm him, he bolted away from the storm. "No," she screamed, panic rising in her throat as she clung tightly to the saddle. Wind whipped furiously, blinding her with dust and debris, and Clara felt her stomach plunge as she struggled to maintain her grip. The landscape transformed into a swirling vortex of chaos as she tried to rein Maverick back under control. She shouted, but the horse charged ahead, galloping straight into danger. In the madness of the dust storm, Clara heard the unmistakable sound of thundering hooves approaching a stampede of wild horses, disoriented and terrified, charging directly toward her. The ground shook beneath Maverick and Clara's fear exploded. "Move," she screamed, but her words were swallowed by the tempest. Time seemed to stretch as she realized the peril she faced. The wild horses were mere seconds away. She had to act. Somehow within the whirlwind, Clara felt a surge of adrenaline pull her focus. She leaned forward, urging Maverick to veer aside, but just as they turned, the herd dashed past, kicking up dirt and dust like a storm of its own. And then the figure appeared, a man on a black stallion, galloping into the storm with fierce determination. He weaved through the chaos like a guardian angel, his posture resolute. He shouted, his voice slicing through the cacophony. Clara's heart raced. She turned just in time to see him reaching for her. In one swift motion, he was there beside her, his hand outstretched. Without hesitation, she took hold of him, and in an instant, he pulled her onto his horse behind him, a shield against the wild tempest. He yelled as they thundered away from the chaos, leaving the stampede behind. Clara clung to him, heart pounding as they sped across the open expanse, the wind howling in their ears. The dust storm began to fade behind them, and as they slowed to a halt, Clara gasped for breath, adrenaline still crackling through her body. She could hardly process what had just happened. She managed to ask, her voice shaky. "Sam," he said, glancing over his shoulder, his eyes bright with a mix of concern and exhilaration. "And you're Clara, right?" Surprised, Clara nodded, still trying to catch her breath. "I've seen you ride out here before. You're always so fearless," he replied with a smile that eased some of her tension. It struck her then, the way he embodied the kind of confidence she admired. "Thank you for saving me," she said, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Fear is natural," he interrupted, giving her a sympathetic look, "but you have to find a way to face it." Clara studied him for a moment, realizing there was a depth to him that held stories untold. Sam took a deep breath, glancing out at the horizon where the storm had passed, leaving only the remnants of dark clouds. "I've been riding these lands for years. You learn a lot when you live with the wild. You must understand the stakes and respect the land." She felt a rush of warmth inside her. "I want to learn. I don't want to cower from life anymore." "Then let's get moving," he replied, his tone shifting to one of purpose. With that, they resumed their ride, moving further away from the remnants of chaos. Sam led them into a nearby canyon, the rocky walls rising around them like ancient guardians. Clara felt a sense of awe wash over her, the beauty of the landscape contrasting sharply with the chaos they had just fled. Sam pointed upward as they paused for a moment. "They might look harmless, but they carry the potential for storms." "I've never thought of it that way," Clara mused, feeling her mind expand. "Exactly," he replied, his eyes focused ahead. "A lot of life lessons can teach you about resilience, about preparing for the unexpected." As they continued to explore the canyon, Clara reveled in both the beauty surrounding her and the growing connection with Sam. He had a knack for making everything feel more significant, and every conversation they had was layered with meaning. Clara asked, breaking the silence as they navigated through the rocky terrain. "More times than I can count," he replied with a chuckle. "Each one teaches you something. That last one reminded me how unpredictable the wild can be." Those words hit home. Clara felt the weight of his meaning. "We should keep each other grounded then," she said, her voice steady. Sam turned to her, a hint of admiration in his eyes. "That's the spirit. It's all about partnership." As they rode deeper into the canyon, darkness began creeping in, shadows elongating across their path. The sun dipped lower, and Clara realized they had been riding for hours, time slipping away like grains of sand through her fingers. Then out of nowhere, the peaceful atmosphere shattered. Sam asked, eyes narrowing as they came to a sudden stop. Clara strained to listen. In the stillness, a distant rumble echoed through the canyon, rhythmic and powerful. She breathed, anxiety creeping back in. "Hooves," he murmured, scanning the shadows for any sign of danger. Without warning, several horses burst into view, galloping around the bend. Clara's heart raced. These were not the wild horses they had faced earlier. These horses carried ridersmen clad in dark clothing, faces obscured under wide-brimmed hats. "Stay close to me," Sam commanded, his tone shifting to one of seriousness. Clara's stomach dropped. The riders approached, moving with a purpose that felt threatening. Sam didn't flinch, holding steady as the men drew nearer, their eyes glinting with a hint of mischief. Clara's heart raced as fear wrapped around her, threatening to constrict her throat. "Nice horses you've got," one of the riders sneered, glancing at Sam's mount. Sam asked, his voice steady but low, like a coiled spring ready to unleash. The men exchanged glances, laughter bubbling amongst them. "Just a little fun," another one said, stepping closer. "Not a chance," Sam replied, unyielding. Clara felt the tension in the air thicken as the riders moved closer, encircling them like vultures. "Looks like you've got a friend there," one grinned, eyeing Clara with a predatory gaze. "Pretty brave of you to be out here alone." "Back off," Sam warned, eyes narrowing as he prepared for their next move. The thundering of hooves echoed, and Clara felt true fear grip her heart for the second time that day. She gripped the reins tightly, heart racing as she sensed the danger looming before them. "Let's see what you've got," one of the riders said, his gaze fixed on Sam. Clara couldn't shake the dread creeping over her. She glanced at Sam, searching for reassurance, but he was focused, resolved, ready to defend them both. Suddenly, as the wind picked up again, dark clouds began swirling above, and the energy in the air shifted. Clara realized that they were on the brink of something bigger. Nature felt like it was holding its breath. The storm's return palpable. "Hold your ground," Sam said, his voice strong. Before she could respond, the first of the riders lunged forward, and Clara's heart raced as the chaos erupted. The wild world of the desert had transformed into a battleground. As hooves pounded against the earth and adrenaline surged through her, she knew that the stakes had never been higher. In that dramatic moment, Clara realized she was no longer just a girl riding in the desert. She was a fighter caught in a world of wolves and storms, and somehow she had to find her courage amid the tempest. With fear spiraling around them, the storm's return looming like a dark omen overhead, Clara clutched the reins tightly, her heart echoing the chaos around her, ready to face whatever came next, because this was just the beginning.